Okay, so number one, you factor and cross out. So you look at 100, 20, and 25. There's no plus or minuses, so you can start seeing if there's any factors that divide out. So you can divide them both by 5 and you get 24 over 5. Then you can cancel 1x out on top, making there 2 x's remaining on top. So then 1 cancels on bottom. And if you cancel the 1y on top, there's then only 4 y's left on bottom. So that's your final answer. For number 2, you always want to factor everything first. So remember, you can't cross anything off if there's plus or minuses in between terms. So technically first, this is x squared plus 9x plus 20. Technically on bottom, it's the quantity 2x plus 8. So you see if you can factor something out. So on bottom, we can cancel out a 2. So we're left with x plus 4, because 2 times x is 2x plus 8. On top, this trinomial, is there a combo that multiplies to 20 that adds to 9? 5 and 4. So those are our factors, x plus 5, x plus 4. The x plus 4's cancel, so that's why we're left with quantity x plus 5 over 2. It doesn't matter if you put it in parentheses or not. I always do, just so that I don't cross something off on accident. Okay, so for the next one, you look at the top numerator, never multiply first. So we can take out a 5, so we take out a 5, and we're left with n plus 3, because 5 times n is 5n, 5 times 3 is 15. Then in that denominator, we can divide out a 4, and then we're left with n plus 2. And now in the right fraction on top, we can take out a 2, right? You can divide out a 2 out of both those terms. You're left with n plus 2. And the bottom, we can take out a 3, and we're left with n plus 3. Now for multiplication, you are not making a common denominator. You just extend the line, and anything you see on top that you see on bottom cancels out. So on top and bottom, the n plus 2's cancel, the n plus 3's cancel, and outside of the parentheses, there's no plus or minus, so we can cancel out a 2 here, divide this by 2, and nothing else cancels. So left on top, we have a 5, and on bottom, we have a 2 times a 3, or 6. So 5, 6 is our answer. So for this next one, before I like to cross multiply, I make sure all numerators and denominators are factored. Now let's go through the steps. Step 1, make sure there's 1 fraction on the left, 1 on the right, check. Next step, see if everything's factored. So if nothing factors out, put parentheses around the terms that have plus or minuses. Then you go along the diagonal and we will cross multiply. So we do x minus 3 times x plus 2. And along the other diagonal, we will multiply x plus 5 times x. Nothing cancels out, so we have to distribute. So on the left side, we get x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6. And on the right, we get x squared plus 5x. Get all terms on one side, so if we subtract x squared, they cancel. If we combine these, we get negative x, and then if we subtract this, negative x minus 5x is negative 6x. And then if we move this to the right, add 6, we get 6. And then divide by negative 6, we get negative 1. You should always check, and if you go back and plug this answer in to your original x slot, so if we plug negative 1 wherever we saw x in the original problem, and we simplify, it's a true statement, so yes, this value is indeed a solution. Okay, adding and subtracting are some of the hardest ones in my opinion, okay? So first, you need to make sure you're factoring, factor. If there's plus and minuses, put parentheses around, there should be a y. Okay, so on bottom, is there two numbers that multiply to 24 that add to 11, 8 and 3. They multiply to 24, add to 11. So I'm going to do a little work off to the side. Okay, so once you find your factors, we change the right denominator to y plus 3, y plus 8. We notice, as you see in blue, that there's already a y plus 8 on both sides. So that saves us a little bit of time. But we see that there's only a y plus 3 on the right fraction. So we need to make sure we add the y plus 3 to the left fraction. So I'm just showing you on the right side, we say it's equal. And we're going to now add the y plus 3 to the left side by multiplying to the numerator and denominator. So we'll do y plus 3 on top, y plus 3 on bottom. So then if you come down here, we have what we see in this numerator. 6 times y plus 3, and up on the right, minus 3y. And the bottom, it's all combined. Now on top, you have to do all the work. Leave the bottom factored. On top, you've got to do all of the work. You cannot cross stuff off yet, because on top, if there's plus or minus in between parts or terms, you can't start canceling out. So when we distribute the 6y, we get 6y plus 18 minus 3y. Again, plus or minuses, you can't start crossing off. So combine like terms, 6y minus 3y, we get 3y plus 18. Factor, so we can divide out of 3, and we're left with y plus 6. Sometimes factors cancel, and if not, that's your final answer. You can leave your answer in factored form, or if you choose to leave it in, standard form by distributing the 3y plus 18, that's fine, but I would leave it in factored form. So again, don't think too much about multiplication problems. The only ones you really need to think about, number 5, the adding, subtracting are a little tricky. That's the only time you need a common denominator. So multiplication, we do not need a common denominator. Factor everything first. You don't want plus or minuses. So on top, left numerator, x plus 3, no factors, put parentheses. On bottom, we can divide out of 10, so we're left with x plus 2. Over here on the right side, trinomial on the bottom, we can factor, and we get x plus 1, x plus 3, they multiply to 3, add to 4. And on top, nothing factors, so we write x plus 2. So over here, that's what we have. For multiplication, I love those. You just extend the line, cross off common factors. So we cross off x plus 2, we cross off x plus 3. Remember, when nothing's left on the top, in the numerator denominator, you can put a 1 as a placeholder. And on bottom, we're left with a 10 and the quantity x plus 1. So our final answer is 1 over 10 times the quantity x plus 1.